a bit of a looker if you like that moony, slightly effeminate type of guy. But then again, Victoria...
Is that historically accurate?
That he's a moony, effeminate type of guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually kind of... He was very into poetry.
Moony. He could be into poetry.
I don't know. He was apparently very good at fencing, so, I mean, he was...
I like fencing. Fencing's very, very interesting.
It is.
Bring fencing back.
And it's kind of hot.
It kind of is.
There's just something about guys and their swords.
Right?
Uh-huh. So, Victoria, I think, I don't know, she was so attention-starved, I think she might have fallen for the first guy to really pay any kind of attention to her, but then again, they could have connected because Albert's childhood was just as traumatic as Victoria's. Albert was the second son of the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, who turned out to be quite a man-whore.
I feel like there should be an acronym for the Saxe-Coburg.
SCG!
No, it doesn't spell anything.
No, it doesn't.
All right.
So,
man-whore?
Man-whore.
We were at man-whore.
Yeah. So, Albert's mother, Louise, got sick with putting up with this, and so she decided to go out and get her own side piece.
Good.
Yep. Good for her. But when Albert was 5, his father found out about it, and he banished her from court. And
Wait, but he did it first.
Right. It's okay for me to do it, but yeah.
That's not still going on at all.
So he divorced her as well.
Okay.
Albert never saw his mother again.
Not ever?
Not ever. She married her lover and unfortunately died at the age of 30. So as a result, Albert developed a lifelong distaste for adultery because as far as he was concerned...
That's what ruined his life.
Right. Ruined his life. So Victoria and Albert marry in February of 1840, and they immediately make up for all of England's succession woes because Victoria gets pregnant right away. They have their first child, another Princess Victoria, in November 1840.
Not a son.
Right. So exactly 9 months later.
Yeah.
So they weren't wasting any time.
Nope.
Exactly a year after that, in November of 1841, Bertie is born. Another 7 children would follow these first 2 children. So while Victoria is commonly thought of as the old fat lady dressed in black,
right,
she was young once, and we know from her diaries.
That's shocking.
And she loved the sexy times, so we know that. She wrote about it a lot.
She wrote about it?
Yeah. Like, she wrote about she wrote that Albert was her angel and that she was in heaven following their wedding night.
Okay.
Even though she was lying down with a headache most of the day afterwards.
So I'm not cute for that.
Right.
Oh, wait, no.
So she may have enjoyed sex, but she absolutely hated pregnancy, breastfeeding, and babies. She once described babies as plants. And she said that she also hated their weird frog-like action. So I guess she's like, they're kicking and stuff. They do kind of look like frogs.
And they're wet.
Ew. I look like Kermit the Frog when I was born. My head was pointy. Oh, gotta love those forceps. All right. The birth of Bertie was particularly hard on Victoria because he was a large baby. So she suffered a great deal physically, but also very emotionally as well. While she was recovering from the birth, she and Albert received word that Princess Vicky was dangerously ill. Albert then used this event to force Victoria to sack her longtime governess, the Baroness Lazen, who's in charge of the royal nursery.
Did she get another job? Did they give her a different job within the...
No, they sent her back to Germany.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, because Albert hated her, he called her the old hag.
Oh my gosh.
Not very nice of him. He just really hated her influence on Victoria.
Okay.
Because he wanted to be her everything.
Oh.
Yeah, he's one of those. And, I mean, Victoria was already suffering from postnatal depression, so she was pretty vulnerable and she gave in. And this is just a small indication of the power struggle that would eventually brew up between Victoria and Albert. They are frequently portrayed in movies and such as being these totally devoted and in love and in sync people, but they were in love. There was clearly a sexual attraction, but they had opposing personalities. Albert, as the man, thought he should be the ruler and that Victoria needed to defer to him. Victoria
thought the same thing, but from her point of view.
Right. And I think she honestly resented being a woman. And, I mean, who could blame her? Because all these men were trying to control her life. She had a very volatile temper. And as a result of that, she could be very childish at times. apparently there were times when they had such bad arguments that Albert would just resort to slipping notes under her door.
That's pretty passive aggressive.
Yeah. So in the wake of Lazen's firing, Albert becomes the head of the royal household while Victoria continues governing the nation. So he's actually the first stay-at-home dad, which is
interesting.
Yeah, kind of cool. So Bertie's growing up in this rather volatile atmosphere. Mm-hmm. To make things worse, his older sister Vicky is absolutely adored by her father because she's very intelligent. She apparently spoke fluent French and German by the time she was 3. Bertie was, on the other hand, described as, quote, not articulate like his sister, but rather babyish in accent. He understood, quote, a little French, but was altogether backward in language, very intelligent and generous and good-tempered with a few passions and stampings occasionally.
Stampings.
So, temper tantrums.
I like that. I'm going to start saying that.
I know. I'm going to have a stamping at work tomorrow.
I can feel it.
Yeah. So as he grew older, his temper tantrums got worse, and he also developed a stammer. His fluency in German actually affected his ability to learn English. And from what I read, all the children in the nursery spoke German fluently, and they would speak it amongst themselves.
Instead of English.
So he was so good at...
Just because their dad...
was German. Their grandmother, too.
Sure.
Yeah. Huh. But so it seemed like that kind of messed with his ability to learn.
Well, they're not living in Germany.
Right. And so he learned substantially slower than Vicky, his sister.
Well, aren't girls, like, more predisposed to language?
Possibly. Victoria spoke, like, 3 languages. As a result, both Victoria and Albert decided that Bertie must be mentally retarded. This is terrible. So they had some quack doctor of phrenology, which is the science of reading the bumps on your head, because that makes sense.
It's like a fortune teller of your head.
I know, right? He pronounced that Bertie's brain was defective.
Oh, right.
And, of course, this didn't help that his younger siblings came in rapid succession after him. He had 2 more siblings born, Alice and Alfred, over basically less than a 4-year period, I think. Bertie was generally just kind of ignored. Even his governess, Lady Sarah Littleton, tried to offset his parents' neglect by being nice, that she was the one who had that comment about, he's very intelligent even though he's backward. She was like trying to compensate for him, which is kind of sweet of her. It didn't really make much of a difference, though, to him, because they think that he acted out a lot because of the fact that he wasn't getting positive reinforcement. By the time he was 7, Bertie was subjected to a rigorous educational program devised by his father. And this system was...
Who knew nothing about...
education, right. This system was supposed to correct his inabilities by strictly timing his lessons, but it appeared to be a dismal failure because his tutor reported, quote, there was at first very greatest difficulty in fixing his attention. He had more than usual difficulty in writing, spelling, calculating, and composing sentences or doing grammatical exercises. As a result, his father decided that it would be a good idea to beat him regularly, confine him to solitary rooms, and then humiliate him by making him stand up in front of the class on a chair.
I don't feel like that would be beneficial.
No, it sounds like a bad prison movie. But despite all this criticism, Bertie did develop one trait that served him well throughout life. He learned to be charming. During the Crimean War, which was France versus Russia, England sided with France for once, and when Bertie accompanied his parents to Paris on a goodwill mission, he ended up winning over the Parisian public, and this would foreshadow his eventual popularity with the British people.
Good for him.
So he finally escapes the hellhole of his childhood in his mid-teens when he is sent to Germany to study, and for the first time he was able to have friends his own age. Because, of course, he was kind of... sequestered off.
Right. Well, he had his sister.
Yeah, but even he was taken away from them eventually. Yeah, it's just really messed up. And as a result of all this freedom in comparison to what he was experiencing at home, he actually got better and was learning more and that kind of thing. Although,
no beatings. No beatings anymore.
No beatings.
Or no humiliation.
By the time he returned home, his older sister Vicky was on her way to being married to the Emperor of Prussia. So once she was married and out of the house, Victoria turned her ire and criticism on Bertie. She once wrote, quote, handsome, I cannot think him, with that painfully small and narrow head, those immense features, and total want of chin.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Want of chin.
You have no chin.
You have so many things to criticize, and...
You couldn't focus on the chin?
Weird.
So, And people were picking up on her distaste for Bertie. Even Victoria's older half-sister by her mother's first marriage wrote, "Do show him love, dearest Victoria. I know that he thinks you're not fond of him." She looked at her son basically and saw that he was nothing like her beloved husband, and that was that.
Beloved?
Yep.
The guy that shoved passive-aggressive notes under her door.
Yes.
That was her beloved.
Yes.
That makes me a little sad.
I know, just a bit. So in 1859, Bertie finally gets off of his parents' criticism, at least on a daily basis. They still wrote him letters. He was allowed to go abroad for a while, and then he spent the summer in Edinburgh before moving on to Oxford. He would eventually move to Cambridge, to Trinity College there, and he actually does really well in his studies.
Good.
So yeah, it turns out that once he's not under his parents' thumbs, he wasn't the half-wit they thought he was.
Oh, it's a miracle.
I know, right? But he's still supervised by men picked by his parents. For the most part, he does follow the rules. In 1861, Bertie is 19, and he had always had a great admiration for the military. He'd even wanted to go in the military, but as the heir to the throne, he was not allowed to. But he convinces his father to allow him to spend some time with the army in Ireland to learn drill and that kind of thing.
That's weird.
Yeah, it sounds like the worst idea ever, because you're going to send a completely sheltered boy to hang out with a bunch of soldiers.
Right. Well, maybe it'll teach him some lessons.
Well,
and it was his choice, right? It's not like he was...
Right, it was his choice. And he learned some lessons, all right. He had minders, but apparently they were not paying much attention to him because he ended up forming a liaison with a woman of easy virtue named Nellie Clifton. He actually wrote down on 3 occasions in his diary that he had been with her.
So she's like following the regiment around.
Yeah, she was a camp follower.
She's an army groupie.
Yeah, army groupie. I like that.
Weird.
Beyond that, we don't know much more about her, just that she appeared as NC on September 7th, September 9th, and September 10th.
So he cared enough to keep track.
Right. Exactly. She just wasn't a one-trick pony.
She was a 3-trick pony.
So Bertie goes from Ireland to Prussia to be with his sister Vicky and her husband Fritz. Okay. And they are traveling.
Wait, Fritz?
Yeah, his name was Fritz.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Sorta.
For a cat name.
Oh yeah, that's a great cat name.
Right?
Oh, all right. We'll have to draw straws.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So they're traveling incognito through Germany when Bertie meets his future wife for the first time. Of course, his father Albert had already been basically starting a dossier on all the available princesses in Europe, and the list turned out to be very short. One of the girls had buck teeth, and another one of them...
Can't marry that.
I know, right? One of them was just stupid. Okay. And so they decided that Princess Alexandra of Denmark would do. And,
yay, Denmark.
Yeah, Adrienne's over here like, yay, I'm Danish.
Half Danish.
Oh, maybe you're possibly descended from the royal family.
I have not traced any sort of Danish history.
Shame on you.
Right. I know, it's sad. I love this whole ancestry and
you need to get on
everything. I feel like there's so many people doing that these days.
Yeah. So I decided that Alexandra would do fine. His first meeting with her goes okay, despite the fact that even though she was only 16, she's almost completely deaf.
Aww.
And she would struggle with that throughout her life. People would think she was aloof, and it was just...
And how old is he? He's a little older?
He's 19.
Okay.
Yeah. So, he likes her, but he's not in any hurry to wed. So he returns to London, and his little side piece, Nellie, ends up in London as well. So, happy days are here again.
Was that, serendipitous?
Yeah.
Or did she know?
I think maybe the regiment came back to London. She hitched a ride with them.
Sure. That's probably what happened.
So he even reportedly snuck her into, I don't know that's a word. That's not a word. Snuck. Sneaked.
No, I have no idea.
It's not a word.
Right?
Snook.
He snuck her into something?
He snuck her in. I think it's slang. But he sneaked her in to Windsor Castle. Sounds weird. Anyway, he was turning 20. He wanted a party, so he brought his side piece to the party. Yeah.
Isn't a side piece a gun?
Dude.
That's a weapon?
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard of mistresses being called side piece.
Okay.
Because she's on the side.
Right.
Yeah. So
I accept that explanation.
Thank you. So Then his parents found out, and all hell broke loose. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Albert despised sexual promiscuity, and so he dispatched a very sternly written letter off to Bertie.
Sure.
He basically writes about his disappointment and his utter disgust of his son's actions.
So wait, he found out